The morning sky above New York turned black without warning. Sarah Chen looked up from her coffee and watched as massive shapes blocked out the sun. Ships, hundreds of them, each one bigger than a city block, hanging in the air like they belonged there. Around the world, the same thing happened. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Delhi. Everywhere humans lived, the ships appeared. They came without sound, without warning, without mercy. Admiral Sarah Chen had spent her life preparing for war. She had trained with the best pilots, commanded the finest ships Earth could build, and dreamed of the day humans would reach the stars. She never imagined the stars would reach them first. Her phone buzzed. Emergency meeting at the United Nations. Every world leader was being called. Sarah grabbed her uniform and ran. The UN building was chaos. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals rushed through the halls. Everyone asked the same questions. Who were they? What did they want? How many ships were there? The answers came 3 hours later. The main assembly hall filled with a strange blue light. The air itself seemed to bend and twist. Then he appeared. He stood 12 feet tall and looked like he was made of living crystal. Light passed through his body and came out in rainbow colors. When he moved, the sound was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. His voice filled the room without him opening what might have been a mouth. "I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian hegemony," the creature said. His words came from everywhere at once. "I speak for the Galactic Council." President Martinez of the United States leaned forward. "What do you want?" "We come with an offer," Kethvar said. "Your species has reached the threshold. You have atomic weapons. You have left your world. You have begun to spread. This cannot continue without guidance." Sarah felt her hands clench into fists. She knew that tone. It was the voice of someone who thought they were doing you a favor while pointing a gun at your head. "The galaxy is not empty," Kethvar continued. 12 species guide the stars. We have kept peace for 10,000 years. We have stopped wars that would burn entire solar systems. We have contained threats that would devour galaxies. We offer you the same protection. British Prime Minister Thompson stood up. "What's the price?" 60% of your population will serve the greater good. They will work on expansion projects in distant systems. They will build the ships and stations that keep the galaxy safe. Their sacrifice will ensure Earth's survival. The room exploded in angry voices. Sarah heard words like slavery and genocide shouted in a dozen languages. Kethvar waited for quiet. "You will also accept limits on your technology. No weapons beyond your current level. No ships that can travel faster than light without our permission. No expansion beyond this solar system without council approval. And if we refuse," President Martinez asked, "then you become a threat to galactic peace." Threats are eliminated. Sarah looked around the room. She saw fear in every face. She saw people already thinking about surrender. "The smart play, the safe play, the cowardly play, how long do we have to decide?" asked the Secretary General. 30 Earth days. Kethvar's form began to fade. "Use this time wisely. Study our fleet. See the power arrayed against you. Understand that resistance means extinction. Choose survival." The blue light vanished. The assembly hall fell silent. Sarah walked to the windows and looked up. The ships were still there, waiting. The next 30 days changed everything. Scientists pointed every telescope and sensor at the alien fleet. The numbers they found made grown admirals weep. 10,000 ships, maybe more. Each one armed with weapons that could crack a planet. The debates never stopped. Every government held emergency sessions. Every military reviewed their options. Every scientist looked for hope in their equations. Sarah found herself leading the resistance faction. A small group that grew smaller each day as more leaders accepted the impossible math. Earth had 300 combat ships. The aliens had 10,000. Earth's best weapons were nuclear missiles. The aliens could turn stars into weapons. "We can't fight them," General Rodriguez said during one late-night meeting. "It's not even a battle. It's suicide, so we just give up?" Sarah shot back. "Hand over half our people and accept that we'll never explore the stars?" "We accept that we'll live," came the tired reply. Sarah understood the logic. She even respected it. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw humans in chains. She saw Earth trapped forever in one small corner of space. She saw children who would never know what it felt like to dream of distant worlds. On day 25, the telescopes found something that changed everything. The alien ships weren't just weapons. They were prisons. Dr. Williams burst into the Security Council meeting with photos that made everyone sick. The alien ships carried millions of beings, other species that had accepted the Council's deal. Workers who labored in the dark between stars, slaves who built the very ships that had conquered them. "Look at their faces," Dr. Williams said, pointing to beings that might have once been proud and free. "This is what cooperation looks like." The room fell silent. Sarah felt something break inside her chest, not her heart. Her fear. "The vote is tomorrow," President Martinez said quietly. Sarah nodded. She already knew how it would go. Fear would win. Logic would win. Survival would win. But that night she made a different choice. Sarah called every ship captain she trusted. Every pilot who had ever dreamed of fighting for something bigger than themselves. Every soldier who understood that some things were worth dying for. "I'm not ordering anyone to come," she told them. "This isn't official. This probably isn't even legal. But tomorrow morning, I'm taking my ship out there. I'm going to show them that humans don't kneel." The responses came back one by one. "Yes, ma'am. Count me in. It's about time." By midnight, Sarah had her answer. Not everyone would come. Maybe not even half. But enough. Enough to make a statement. The next day, the world's leaders gathered to cast their votes. Most would vote yes. Accept the deal. Choose life over freedom. But Sarah wasn't there to see it. She stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, looking at the greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 300 ships. Every combat vessel Earth possessed. Cargo haulers fitted with missiles. Private yachts carrying nuclear bombs. Even a few alien ships that defecting scientists had managed to steal and modify. It wasn't enough to win. Sarah knew that. Everyone knew that. But it was enough to send a message. "All ships," Sarah broadcast on the general frequency. "This is Admiral Chen. Today we don't fight for victory. We fight for the right to make our own choices. We fight so that when the aliens tell their children about the day they conquered Earth, they'll have to mention that humans fought back." The fleet moved as one toward the alien ships. Behind them, Earth's governments were probably voting to surrender. Ahead of them, weapons that could destroy worlds were charging up. Sarah smiled. For the first time in 30 days, she felt free. "Today," she said to her crew, "we choose chaos." The battle began with silence. Sarah's fleet drifted toward the alien ships without firing a shot. She wanted them to see her coming. Wanted them to know this was a choice, not an accident. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Torres said from the communication station. Getting signals from Earth, the vote finished. They accepted the deal. Sarah nodded. She had expected that. Fear was a powerful motivator, and the math was simple. 60% slavery was better than 100% death. But math had never been good at measuring the human soul. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Sarah ordered. "Every human settlement, every space station, every colony ship. Make sure everyone hears this." She stood and faced the camera that would carry her words across the solar system and beyond. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. 30 minutes ago, our governments voted to accept the Galactic Council's terms. They chose survival over freedom. I respect their decision. But I cannot follow it." She paused, thinking of the children who would grow up as slaves, the dreams that would die in the darkness between stars. "We reject your deal," she said, looking directly into the camera. "We choose chaos," the transmission ended. Around the solar system, the message played on every screen, every radio, every communication device humans had built. In the mines of Ceres, workers stopped their drilling to listen. On Mars, colonists gathered around screens in wonder. On Earth, people who had voted for surrender felt something stir in their chests. The alien fleet responded immediately. Kethavar's voice filled space, transmitted on frequencies that made human teeth ache. "Admiral Chen, you speak for a defeated government. Return to your world. Accept the wisdom of your leaders." "I speak for myself," Sarah replied, "and for every human who believes freedom is worth fighting for." "Then you choose extinction. We choose to live on our own terms." The alien weapons charged up. Sarah could see the energy building in their ships, weapons that could turn her fleet into atoms in seconds. "All ships," she broadcast to her forces. "Remember, we're not here to win. We're here to show them who we are." The first alien ship fired. The beam cut through space like a knife made of light. It struck the UES Constitution and turned it into expanding gas in half a second. 30 good people died in that instant, but the Constitution's death had a purpose. As it exploded, the ship's nuclear reactor went critical. The blast damaged 2 nearby alien vessels and created an electromagnetic pulse that knocked out their shields for precious seconds. Now, Sarah shouted. The human fleet attacked like a pack of wolves. They didn't try to match the alien ship for ship. Instead, they swarmed. 5 human vessels would target 1 alien ship, hitting it from different angles while it was still focused on the last target. The cargo hauler New Tokyo rammed an alien cruiser at full speed, its holds packed with every explosive the crew could find. The ship died, but it took the alien vessel with it in a fireball that lit up half the solar system. Fighter squadrons buzzed around the massive alien ships like angry bees, too small for the big guns to target effectively. They fired missiles at weapon ports and engine vents, doing damage that would have seemed impossible against such advanced technology. But the humans had advantages the aliens hadn't expected. Desperation made them creative. Fear made them bold, and the certain knowledge of death made them willing to try anything. Captain Rodriguez guided his ship into the exhaust port of an alien dreadnought. The explosion took out the ship's main engine and left it drifting helplessly. 3 more human ships died in the blast, but they died laughing. Sarah watched her fleet disappear ship by ship. Good people. Brave people, people who had chosen to fight because they believed in something bigger than themselves. Each death hurt like a knife in her chest, but they were winning something more important than the battle. The alien ships were taking damage. Real damage. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds were being hurt by humans with nuclear weapons and mining charges. The Great Galactic Council fleet was bleeding. Admiral, Torres called out. Something's wrong with their formations. They're pulling back. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were indeed retreating, but not in good order. They were moving away from something. Then she saw it. Space itself was bending near the alien fleet. Reality twisted like heated glass, and something vast and dark pushed through the cracks. What the hell is that? Someone whispered. The thing that emerged defied description. It looked like a machine, but it moved like a living creature. It was bigger than the largest alien ship, but it seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could follow. When Sarah looked at it directly, her brain refused to process what she was seeing. The creature attacked the nearest alien ship with weapons that seemed to reshape matter itself. The proud vessel of the Galactic Council simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from reality. More cracks appeared in space. More creatures emerged. Some looked like ships, but ships built by minds that thought in ways no human could understand. Others appeared to be living things the size of asteroids, covered in eyes and weapons and parts that served purposes Sarah couldn't guess. The alien fleet panicked. Ships that had attacked humans with cold precision now fired wildly at threats they clearly hadn't expected. The careful formations broke apart as each vessel tried to protect itself. Kethvar's voice filled the communication channels, but now it carried something Sarah had never heard from the Galactic Council before. Fear. What have you done? The alien ambassador screamed. The barriers are failing. The old chaos is awakening. Sarah didn't understand what he meant, but she understood opportunity when she saw it. All remaining ships, she broadcast. The enemy is distracted. Make every shot count. The surviving human vessels pressed their attack. With the aliens focused on the new threats, the human ships could get close enough to do real damage. The merchant vessel Lucky Strike managed to plant a nuclear mine on an alien battleship's hull. The explosion cracked the ship in half. But the new creatures weren't just attacking aliens. One of them turned toward the human fleet, studying them with senses that made Sarah's head hurt. Then, incredibly, it moved away. It had looked at the human ships and decided they weren't a threat worth destroying. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, most of Sarah's fleet was gone. Of the 300 ships that had followed her into battle, only 47 remained. But the alien fleet was broken too. Hundreds of their ships were destroyed or damaged. The survivors fled toward the edge of the solar system, pursued by creatures that had emerged from whatever dark corner of space they called home. Kethvar's final transmission came as his own ship limped away from Earth. You don't understand what you've unleashed, he said. His crystal form flickered with cracks and damage. We maintained the barriers for 10,000 years. We kept the chaos contained. You have doomed yourselves and every thinking being in the galaxy. The transmission cut off. The alien ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, running from an enemy they clearly feared more than death itself. Sarah sat in her captain's chair, surrounded by the wreckage of 2 fleets and the strange new creatures that swam through space like fish in an ocean. Her ship was damaged, her fleet was destroyed, and she had no idea what would happen next. But for the first time in 30 days, Earth was free. "Ma'am," Torres said quietly, "we're getting signals from all over the system. Every human settlement is broadcasting the same message." "What message?" Torres smiled. "We reject your deal. We choose chaos." Sarah leaned back in her chair and watched the strange creatures explore the solar system. Whatever came next, humanity would face it as free people. That had to count for something. Dr. Elena Vasquez had always believed the universe held secrets. She just never expected them to start glowing in her laboratory. 3 weeks after the battle at Earth, Elena stared at the artifacts she had spent years studying. The strange metal objects found drifting in space by deep survey ships had always been puzzles. They were clearly artificial, but made from materials that shouldn't exist. Their designs followed mathematical principles that human science was only beginning to understand. Now they hummed with energy and cast patterns of light across her lab walls. "Computer. Record observation log 47, Elena said, not taking her eyes off the largest artifact. "The objects are showing increased electromagnetic activity. The energy patterns appear to be responding to galactic events." She had been tracking reports from across known space. The same chaos that had struck Earth was spreading everywhere. Ancient defense systems were activating. Automated war machines that had slept for millions of years were waking up. Creatures from dark space were appearing near every major civilization. The Galactic Council's perfect order was falling apart. "Dr. Vasquez," her assistant James called from across the lab. "You need to see this newsfeed." Elena walked over to the main screen. A reporter was standing in front of what had been the Centauri Republic's capital world. The planet's surface was covered in geometric patterns that pulsed with unnatural light. "The Centauri government has been silent for 72 hours, the reporter said. "Long-range sensors detect massive energy readings, but all attempts at communication have failed. Military sources suggest the planet may have been consumed by the same entities that attacked Council fleets." Elena frowned. The Centauri Republic had been one of the Council's oldest allies. They had surrendered their independence 3,000 years ago, in exchange for protection and technology. Their society was built around following Council rules and avoiding conflict. If the chaos had reached them, nowhere was safe. "James, bring up the Galactic Threat Assessment." The screen filled with a map of known space. Red dots marked systems where the new entities had appeared. Yellow showed worlds that had gone silent. Green indicated systems still under Council control. There was very little green left. "Look at the pattern," Elena said, studying the map. "The entities aren't attacking randomly. They're targeting specific types of civilizations." James highlighted the affected systems. "What do you see?" "They're hitting the most advanced societies first. The ones with the strongest technology, the most rigid social structures, the greatest dependence on Council protection." Elena felt excitement building in her chest. "It's not random destruction. It's selection pressure." She turned back to the artifacts. The largest one had opened like a flower, revealing complex inner structures that hurt to look at directly. "Computer, analyze the energy patterns from the artifacts. Compare them to the entity signatures from the battle reports." The computer worked for several minutes. When it finished, the results made Elena's hands shake. "Energy patterns show 87% correlation," the computer announced. "Artifacts appear to be resonating with entity activities across the galaxy." Elena stared at the artifacts with new understanding. "You're connected to them, aren't you? You're part of the same system." As if responding to her words, the largest artifact projected a hologram into the air. The image showed the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago. Different stars, different worlds, different civilizations, but the same chaos. The hologram zoomed in on a single system where massive ships battled creatures that defied description. The ships were clearly artificial, but their designs followed the same mathematical principles as Elena's artifacts. "The predecessors," she whispered. Every spacefaring civilization had legends about them, the mysterious race that had once ruled the galaxy before vanishing without explanation. They had left behind ruins on 1,000 worlds, artifacts that no one could understand, and technologies that seemed like magic. The hologram changed, showing the galaxy's gradual transformation. The chaotic battles gave way to ordered systems. The strange entities retreated to dark corners of space. Peace spread from world to world, but the peace came with a price. The civilizations that survived grew stagnant. Innovation slowed. The spark of creativity that had driven the predecessors began to fade. The Council didn't defeat the chaos, Elena realized. They contained it. They built a galaxy-wide prison and locked everyone inside. The artifacts pulsed brighter. More holograms appeared, showing recent events. The human fleet's attack on the Council ships, the entities emerging from dark space, the spread of chaos across the galaxy. And then, impossibly, the hologram showed her watching the holograms. "You're testing us," Elena said.
All of this.
The entities, the chaos, the breakdown of Council order. It's a test. The largest artifact opened further, revealing a chamber that seemed to contain a piece of space itself. Stars swirled inside it, and Elena could feel vast intelligence watching her. She reached toward the chamber with one trembling hand. The moment her fingers touched the artifact's surface, the universe exploded in her mind. She saw the truth of what the predecessors had been. Not a single species, but a confederation of races that had learned to embrace chaos rather than fear it. They had built their civilization on conflict and growth, on the constant push and pull between order and entropy. They had been magnificent, but they had also been lonely. For millions of years, they had waited for other species to pass the same test they had faced, to choose dangerous freedom over safe slavery, to pick growth over stagnation. Most species failed. They chose security and comfort and slow death. The Council was built from the survivors of those failures, creatures who had traded their souls for safety. But sometimes, very rarely, a species chose differently. Elena saw humanity's choice to fight the Council fleet. She saw the chaos that followed, and she understood why the entities had spared the human ships. They recognized something familiar. "The test isn't over," Elena said, pulling her hand back from the artifact. "The entities aren't trying to destroy civilization. They're trying to save it." James stared at her. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Which civilizations are being attacked? The ones that have grown soft under Council rule. The ones that have forgotten how to adapt and grow. The entities are forcing them to evolve or die." The newsfeed supported her theory. Worlds that fought back against the entities were surviving. Civilizations that tried to hide behind old Council protections were being consumed. The chaos was burning away weakness and leaving only strength. "What about Earth?" James asked. Elena smiled, looking at the artifacts that now surrounded her with warm light. "We already passed the first test. We chose to fight instead of surrender. Now we have to help others do the same." She turned to her communication equipment. Earth needed to know what was happening. Humanity wasn't facing an invasion or a natural disaster. They were facing an opportunity. The galaxy was transforming. The old order was dying, and for the first time in millions of years, the universe was testing its children to see who was ready to inherit the stars. Elena began composing her report. She had a feeling that Admiral Chen would want to hear this news. After all, chaos was coming to the galaxy, whether anyone wanted it or not. The only question was whether humanity would ride the wave or be swept away by it. Looking at the artifacts that hummed with ancient purpose, Elena was betting on humanity. They had, after all, chosen chaos once before. 6 months after the battle at Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of a ship that shouldn't exist. The vessel had started life as a human destroyer, but it barely resembled its original form. Predecessor technology flowed through its hull like living metal. Weapons that bent space itself jutted from its sides. The engines drew power from sources that human science was still learning to understand. Sarah called it the Chaos Runner, and it was humanity's flagship in a war that spanned the galaxy. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Torres, who had somehow survived every battle and stayed by Sarah's side. "We're getting distress calls from the hegemony frontier. 3 systems under attack by automated defense networks." Sarah nodded. The pattern was always the same. Ancient machines would wake up and start hunting anything with advanced technology. The old Council species would panic and call for help. The new alliance would respond. The alliance. Sarah still marveled at what they had built. It had started with humans and a few alien rebels, species that had never fully accepted Council rule. Pirates, outcasts, and troublemakers who remembered what freedom felt like. But as the chaos spread, they had been joined by others. Young civilizations that chose to fight rather than hide. Old ones that rediscovered their warrior spirits. Even some former council species that learned to adapt or die. Set course for the hegemony, Sarah ordered, and send word to our allies. Time for another rescue mission. The Chaos Runner slipped into faster-than-light travel. Around it, 40 other ships of the Chaos Fleet followed. Human vessels mixed with alien designs, all modified with predecessor technology that Dr. Vasquez's team had learned to use. They weren't the biggest fleet in the galaxy. They weren't the most advanced. But they were something the old order had never produced. They were united by choice rather than fear. The battle at hegemony space was already raging when they arrived. The automated defense network had awakened 3 days ago. Massive machine ships, each one the size of a moon, hunted through the system, destroying anything that registered as advanced on their sensors. The hegemony fleet tried to fight back, but their rigid tactics and predictable technology made them easy targets. "Analysis," Sarah called out. "The machines are using pattern recognition," reported her science officer, a brilliant young woman named Dr. Patel. "They attack vessels that match pre-programmed threat profiles. Standardized council designs, conventional weapon signatures, traditional formation flying." Sarah smiled. "Then we give them something they've never seen before." The Chaos Fleet scattered as it entered the system. No two ships followed the same approach vector. Human fighters spiraled through space like dancers, their movements too random for the machines to predict. Alien vessels that had been modified beyond recognition attacked from impossible angles. The defense network tried to respond, but it had been programmed to fight the orderly battles of the past. Against an enemy that refused to follow any rules, its targeting system struggled. Sarah's ship dove toward the largest machine, weapons charging with energies that the predecessors had used to reshape reality itself. The machine fired back with beams that could cut through mountains. But the Chaos Runner twisted through dimensions that the machine's sensors couldn't track. "Fire," Sarah ordered. The ship's main weapon discharged, and space itself seemed to scream. The beam struck the machine and began unmaking it at the atomic level. The massive construct tried to adapt, but the predecessor weapon was designed to overcome any defense. The machine died in a cascade of collapsing metal and failing energy systems. Around the system, the rest of the Chaos Fleet engaged the remaining defense networks. They didn't try to match the machine's firepower. Instead, they used speed, cunning, and technologies that the machines had never been programmed to fight. One by one, the ancient defenses fell. "Admiral," Torres called out, "we're getting a transmission from the Hegemony command ship." The main screen lit up with the image of Admiral Kelleth, leader of the Hegemony's military forces. Sarah had met him before. He was old, proud, and deeply suspicious of humans and their chaotic allies. "Admiral Chen," Kelleth said stiffly, "we appreciate your assistance. The defense networks have been neutralized." "Glad we could help," Sarah replied, "but this won't be the last attack. These machines are waking up all across the galaxy. You need to adapt your tactics." Kelleth's face darkened. "The Hegemony has maintained galactic peace for thousands of years. We do not need lessons in warfare from what?" Sarah interrupted. "From species that are still alive and growing. From civilizations that choose freedom over safety." The old admiral fell silent. Around him, Sarah could see his bridge crew listening. Young officers who had watched their perfect fleet fail against an enemy their leaders couldn't understand. "The old ways are dying, Admiral," Sarah continued gently. "The machines don't attack randomly. They target stagnation. They hunt civilizations that have stopped evolving. You can keep following the old council rules and watch your people get consumed, or you can learn to change." She gestured toward her own bridge, where humans and aliens worked side by side. "We're not trying to conquer anyone. We're trying to survive. And we've learned that survival means growing, adapting, becoming something new." Kelleth looked at his tactical displays, where the wreckage of his fleet mixed with the remains of ancient machines. The Chaos Fleet had lost only 3 ships. His forces had lost 30. "What do you propose?" he asked finally. "Send some of your people to train with us. Let them learn new tactics, new technologies, new ways of thinking. In exchange, we'll help defend your worlds when the next wave of machines wakes up." It wasn't the first time Sarah had made this offer. Over the past months, dozens of species had accepted. The alliance grew stronger with each new member, each new perspective, each new way of solving problems. Some species, like the Hegemony, were proud. They had ruled their corner of space for millennia and didn't like admitting they needed help. But pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. "I will consider your proposal," Kelleth said finally. Sarah nodded. It was a start. After the transmission ended, Torres looked at her with curiosity. "Do you think he'll actually send anyone?" "He will," Sarah replied. "Because the alternative is extinction." She was right. 2 weeks later, the first hegemony volunteers arrived at the Chaos Fleet's training facility. They were young officers who had watched their elders fail against the machines. They came ready to learn. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Ancient civilizations faced a choice: evolve or die. Some chose poorly and vanished into history, but others, driven by necessity and inspired by example, began to change. The galaxy was transforming. The rigid order that the Council had maintained for 10,000 years was cracking apart. In its place, something new was growing, something chaotic and dangerous and magnificently alive. Dr. Vasquez's research teams, working with alien scientists and predecessor technology, made breakthrough after breakthrough. They learned to communicate with the ancient machines, to predict where new defenses would activate, to understand the vast intelligence that had created the tests. The predecessors hadn't vanished, Elena reported. They had transcended physical existence, becoming something that existed in the spaces between thoughts, in the quantum foam that underlay reality itself. They watched their children struggle and grow, offering guidance to those who proved worthy, and humanity, the species that had chosen chaos over safety, had become their most promising students. Sarah stood on her bridge and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Council were making their last stand, proud species that refused to change, clinging to the old ways even as their worlds burned. She felt sorry for them. But pity was another luxury the galaxy could no longer afford. The test was accelerating. Soon every species would face the final choice: adapt and inherit the stars, or resist and face extinction. Sarah had already made her choice. Now she would help others make theirs. The chaos was beautiful, and it was coming for everyone. The final battle began not with weapons, but with a scream that echoed across dimensions. Admiral Sarah Chen felt it in her bones as the Chaos Runner emerged from faster-than-light travel. Every living thing in the galactic core system doubled over in pain as reality itself cried out in agony. At the center of the system, where the galaxy's oldest civilizations had once built their greatest monuments, space was breaking apart. "Report," Sarah gasped, fighting through the psychic noise that filled her head. Dr. Patel worked frantically at her console, her face pale with effort. "The Council survivors are using a predecessor weapon. They're trying to reset the galaxy's fundamental structure." On the main screen, Sarah could see the weapon itself. It looked like a star made of crystal and mathematics, suspended in the void where the Council's homeworld had once existed. Streams of energy poured from it into the quantum foundations of space, rewriting the laws that governed matter and energy. "They want to undo everything," Dr. Vasquez said from her position at the science station. Elena had insisted on coming for this final confrontation, bringing every piece of predecessor technology they had discovered. "They're trying to restore the old galactic order. Lock the chaos away forever." Sarah understood the implications. If the Council succeeded, the galaxy would return to its previous state of enforced peace. The ancient machines would sleep again. The entities from dark space would retreat to their hiding places. Innovation would slow to a crawl, and every species would accept the safety of stagnation. It would mean the death of everything humanity had fought for. "How long until the reset is complete?" Sarah asked. 6 hours, Dr. Patel replied. "Maybe less." Around the Chaos Runner, the Alliance fleet took position. 200 ships from 50 different species, all united by their refusal to accept easy answers. They faced a Council force that was smaller, but armed with technology that could unmake stars. "Admiral," reported Captain Rodriguez, now commanding the human contingent, "we're receiving surrender demands from the Council fleet. They're offering one last chance to accept their protection." Sarah looked at the crystal weapon that pulsed with reality-bending power. She thought about the choice humanity had made 1 year ago, when a crystal being had offered them safety in exchange for their freedom. "Send them our answer," she said. The transmission went out on all frequencies, carrying her words to every ship in both fleets. "We rejected your deal before. We reject it now. We choose chaos." The battle erupted across multiple dimensions. Council ships fired weapons that could delete matter from existence. Alliance vessels responded with predecessor technology that rewrote the laws of physics in local space. Reality twisted and reformed as two different visions of the universe clashed. But the real battle wasn't being fought with ships and weapons. Dr. Vasquez led a team of scientists and engineers from dozens of species toward the weapon at the system's heart. They traveled not in ships but in vehicles that Elena had built, using pure predecessor technology, constructs, that existed partially outside normal space. The weapon is drawing power from the galactic core itself, Elena reported as her team approached the crystal star. We can't destroy it, but we might be able to redirect it. Her team worked frantically, using tools that human language couldn't describe. They were joined by alien scientists who had learned to think in ways their ancestors never could. Together, they represented something new in the galaxy. Cooperation born from choice rather than force. The Council defenders tried to stop them, but they faced an enemy that refused to follow established patterns. Human ships attacked in spirals that made no tactical sense. Alien vessels used weapons that operated on principles the Council had banned as too dangerous. The Alliance fought with the creativity of people who had nothing left to lose. Sarah's ship broke through the Council lines and dove toward the weapon. Around her, space rippled with energies that could rewrite reality. The Chaos Runner's hull, reinforced with predecessor technology, held together through forces that should have torn it apart. Elena, Sarah called over the communication system. How much more time do you need? Almost there, came the reply. But Sarah, you need to understand what we're doing. We're not stopping the reset. We're changing its target. Sarah felt her heart skip. What do you mean? The weapon is designed to restore galactic order by suppressing chaos. We're reversing it. Instead of locking the chaos away, we're setting it free, completely free. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. You're talking about removing all the barriers. Everything the predecessors built to contain the ancient entities, the sleeping machines, all of it. Yes, Elena replied calmly. We're ending the test. No more gradual awakening. No more careful selection. Every species in the galaxy will face the choice all at once. Evolve or die. Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. Humans and aliens who had chosen to fight for their freedom. People who had proven they could grow and adapt and become something greater than they had been. But there were billions of beings in the galaxy who had never faced that choice. Civilizations that had lived in safety for thousands of years. Children who had never known conflict or hardship or the need to change. How many will die? Sarah asked. I don't know, Elena admitted. Maybe billions. Maybe everyone. But Sarah, the alternative is the slow death of everything that makes life worth living. Better to risk extinction than accept eternal stagnation. The decision hung in space like a sword over the galaxy's throat. Sarah could order Elena to stop. She could try to find another way. She could choose the safer path, but safety had never been the human way. Do it, Sarah said. Elena's team completed their work just as the Council forces closed in. The crystal weapon pulsed once, twice, then exploded in a cascade of light that filled the galactic core. But instead of restoring order, the explosion shattered every barrier that had contained chaos for millions of years. Across the galaxy, sleeping machines woke up all at once. Ancient entities emerged from dark space in numbers that dwarfed previous encounters. Reality storms swept through civilized systems, forcing every species to adapt or perish. The golden age of Council peace ended in a single moment. Some civilizations fell immediately. Species that had grown too dependent on artificial order couldn't handle the sudden chaos. They collapsed like buildings with their foundations removed, but others rose to meet the challenge. Young species that still remembered how to fight discovered they were stronger than they had ever imagined. Old civilizations that had seemed weak and passive revealed hidden reserves of strength. The galaxy exploded with innovation as millions of minds worked frantically to solve new problems. And at the center of it all, humanity and their allies became teachers and guides. They had faced the chaos first and learned to thrive in it. Now they shared that knowledge with anyone willing to listen. The war between order and chaos ended not with victory for either side, but with synthesis. A new galactic civilization emerged. One built on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced peace. Species maintained their independence while working together against common threats. Diversity was celebrated rather than suppressed. It wasn't perfect. The chaos killed billions and destroyed civilizations that couldn't adapt fast enough. But from the ashes, something magnificent grew. Sarah stood in the ruins of the old United Nations building on Earth, watching children from a dozen species play together in the gardens. Above them, ships from across the galaxy came and went, carrying traders and explorers and teachers to new worlds. Earth had become a pilgrimage site, not because humans ruled the galaxy, but because they had shown others how to be free. Any regrets? Elena asked, joining Sarah on the observation deck. Sarah thought about the question seriously. She thought about the billions who had died in the chaos, the civilizations that had been lost, the price that freedom had demanded. No, she said finally. We gave the galaxy a choice. That's all anyone can do. Above them, the stars shone with new possibilities. The galaxy pulsed with the rhythm of controlled chaos, dangerous, unpredictable, and magnificently alive. Humanity had refused the Galactic Council's deal. Chaos had followed, and in that chaos, every species in the galaxy had found something they had lost long ago, the chance to become something greater than they had ever imagined possible. The test was over. The real work was just beginning.